The second prophecy of Mandos, better known as the Dagor Dagorath, meaning Battle of All Battles, was said by Christopher Tolkien to be a concept that was abandoned by his father, yet it may remain within the legendarium in various places. In this video, I will share a possible reference to the Dagor Dagorath that remains within The Lord of the Rings. It is my view that even abandoned ideas can live on within the characters themselves. Could the Dagor Dagorath be a legend existing within the legend that we ourselves are reading? The Dagor Dagorath is an apocalyptic event that was prophesied by the Vala Namo, also known as Mandos. It is told that Morgoth, the first Dark Lord, will suffer his final defeat, and that this defeat will usher in the new world through a new music. Tolkien's relationship with the Battle of All Battles is quite a complex one. The second prophecy of Mandos does not technically appear in the book that was published following Tolkien's death, the Silmarillion, but is still referenced in other more subtle ways. The prophecy was said to create issues related to free will and Tolkien's own beliefs, specifically Catholicism and Armageddon. There was also an issue related to Turin Turambar and his apparent transformation for his place in this final battle, his return from the dead, and a future place among the so-called Sons of the Valar. The Dagor Dagorath can even be interpreted as morphing into the War of Wrath, that great final conflict at the end of the First Age. We are told that elves have no myths and legends dealing with the end of the world, which leaves this particular myth in the hands of the Númenóreans, or what is called Mannish legend. We also can't forget the editorial choices made by Christopher Tolkien, wishing for a true end to the Silmarillion and a noble attempt to restrict, if possible, new additions to fit the narrative. The final battle is a large and complicated event that does not lessen the quality of the Silmarillion through its omission, but could have created several problems through its inclusion. Thus it only exists, so to speak, in the beliefs of certain characters within the story, with no explicit declaration from Tolkien in the stories themselves that it certainly would happen. Coming to The Lord of the Rings, the Barrow Wights are found within Book 1, and are mysterious creatures to say the least. They seem to be dead bodies, or bones animated by evil spirits. Very few details are given, even in the appendices, but like with all mysterious creatures, many theories exist, from corrupted Maiar, fallen Avari elves, or evil men of the north. As the hobbits are captured in the Barrow, a chant can be heard. I wouldn't claim outright that the chant is related to Morgoth, but it's certainly possible. Many lean towards the words relating to the current Dark Lord, Sauron, the chief protagonist of this story. I personally lean closer to Morgoth because the chant appeals to the doom of men, the corrupted fear of the gift of men instigated by Morgoth. This is when men became fearful of death instead of welcoming it as a natural step. They would cling to life until they were old, sick and weary, with twisted minds envious of the immortality of the Ainur and the elves. Then behind locked doors Sauron spoke to the king, and he lied, saying, "It is he whose name is not now spoken, for the Valar have deceived you concerning him, putting forward the name of Eru, a phantom devised in the folly of their hearts, seeking to enchain men in servitude to themselves. For they are the oracle of this Eru, which speaks only what they will, but he that is their master shall yet prevail, and he will deliver you from this phantom, and his name is Melkor, Lord of all, giver of freedom, and he shall make you stronger than they." I don't see it as being much of a stretch to imagine wights as possible former men of the northern kingdoms, descendants of Númenóreans lingering in corruption of Melkor worship and the false ideas planted by Sauron in the Second Age. The worship of Melkor had spread beyond the Isle itself and was found in the far reaches of Middle-earth, with the wights being sent by the Witch King of Angmar, who had knowledge of this land. The Witch King had now a clearer understanding of the matter. He had known something of the country long ago in his wars with the Dunedain, and especially of the Tuairn Gorthad of Cardolan, now the Barrow Downs, whose evil wights had been sent there by himself. I find it easier to tie the words of these wights to Morgoth over Sauron. There are references to the sun failing and the moon dying. In multiple drafts of the Silmarillion, Tolkien speaks of Morgoth arriving at the great end, either by contriving a quarrel between the moon and the sun through their guides that were then named Urwendi and Elinsor. Both would pass through the gates, and the gates of the east and west would be destroyed, with both guides being lost in the process. This was later changed to Morgoth leaving the void through the Door of Night that he was forced through at the end of the First Age. After emerging, he would destroy both the sun and moon. It fits with Tom Bombadil's words when he targets the wights themselves.
Get out, you old wight, vanish in the sunlight, shrivel like the cold mist, like the winds go wailing, out into the barren lands, far beyond the mountains. Come never here again, leave your barrow empty, lost and forgotten be, darker than the darkness, where gates stand forever shut, till the world is mended.
Here, Tom speaks of the gates standing forever shut until the world is mended. This hints towards the idea of the Marring of Arda being undone after Morgoth's final defeat. The Marring of Arda being the world as it stands, tainted by the evil of Morgoth. The idea of the hand over the Dead Sea and withered land as a reference to Sauron can work, as we get another reference to Sauron reaching across the land with his arm growing long when the Company of the Ring stands on Caradhras. I think talk of stars dying in the black wind reaches closer to Morgoth, with the first Dark Lord always having targeted the work of the Valar. There are of course multiple ways the reader can view all this. I like to read the wights as speaking of their own belief that Morgoth will return, marking the end of days. Even if Tolkien did not progress with Dagor Dagorath, to me it doesn't eliminate the possibility that Morgoth's own followers, and even their followers, could believe that it would happen, the return of the first incarnation of evil. We have to remember that not everything that is said by all the characters within Arda needs to have happened or will happen. If none of these characters know for sure what will happen, then why couldn't they have their own independent beliefs, or even prophecies? Others may see the words of the Barrow-wights as mere poetic language, an incantation or spell, speaking of Sauron's victory over the world, where all hope will be lost, and where daylight no longer halts the darkness, evil as some unstoppable force in every place in the world. With text like this, I think interpretation is certainly warranted. I personally enjoy the idea of it being a remnant of the corruption of Sauron back in the Second Age, a glimpse at Melkor worship as it currently exists in the Third Age. One could even claim it was about Sauron and Morgoth, with the former claiming to be Melkor returned in the Third Age. His return and rise in power could be a belief that the great end was coming sooner rather than later. We can only imagine what Sauron's most faithful and corrupted servants would believe about him. To me, canon becomes irrelevant in discussions like this. The Barrow-wights can sing of the sun and moon dying, even if Tolkien stopped writing about the end of days, and if the Silmarillion doesn't say it, then it doesn't mean it will happen, nor is it something that should be purposefully scored out from the story on every page where there's a vague reference to it. The figures of Middle-earth and beyond do not know all that is to come, but adding this sort of depth enriches everything, adding to the wonder and scope of the already vast legendarium of Tolkien. I love the idea of barrow-bound wights, rattling around under the surface, with cold jewellery and dark words, frightening hobbits, with talk of something as grand as the end of the world and the return of the first Dark Lord.